Another day, another Montreal Canadiens injury announcement. Am I right? What is going on with all of the injuries again this season? Let's run down the list again. After the complete misery that Montreal and its fans endured last year in terms of injuries and man games lost, this year, despite knowing it was year one of a rebuild, I think everyone pretty much had the consensus that as far as the injury front was concerned, this year could no way be worse than last year, right? Well, we were all wrong. Once again this year, the Habs are leading the NHL in man games lost, and they're even beating out their statistics in this category from last season. Last season was bad enough as far as injuries were concerned. This year has taken it to a completely different level, and it seems like it's been snowballing faster and faster ever since the start of the season. So where are we at right now? Because guess what? This week again, we found out more guys out with injury, more guys shut down for the season. And the list just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. So today, let's go on a refresher course. Who's out of the lineup and who in these last 4 games of the season can we expect to maybe make a return to the lineup? I mean, the Habs this year are seriously taking limping to the end of the season to a completely much too literal level. Sean Monahan, done for the season, lower body injury. We do know that it was a groin injury that he needed to have looked at and a procedure done for. He is shut down for the season. It's a disappointing way for Sean Monahan to end a season where he actually seemed to have a bit of rejuvenation coming to Montreal from Calgary. Alex Belzile, the most recent guy to get shut down for the season. Why? Because he fractured his leg. His season ends there, the captain of the Laval Rocket. He wasn't available to play with Laval after the Habs season is done anyway because they did not paper transaction him at trade deadline. But Alex Belzile is a pending UFA this summer. He was on a 1-year deal this year, so we'll have to wait to see if Alex Belzile gets brought back on another 2-way deal with the Canadiens, whether he will retake his Laval captaincy at all next year or if he and his agent will try to seek an NHL spot on a roster elsewhere. Continuing through the forwards, we've got Juraj Slafkovsky, last year's bombastic first overall draft selection, who then, some say controversially started the season in the NHL with the Montreal Canadiens and had a bit of a lackluster start to the year. He was one of the early players to go out and be done for the season, so no Juraj Slafkovsky, just a very brief look at his rookie season. We'll have to wait to see after his rehab is completed this summer what he's got for next year. Another disappointment, I think, for a player who looked to be really finding a new step in his game and kind of getting back to what he was projected to be is Kirby Dach, who also has been shut down for the season. It's a disappointment for Kirby Dach for sure, as he was really starting to contribute, particularly once they moved him off of Suzuki's wing and put him on the center where he is supposed to be playing. He was finding his ground there. So Kirby Dach, another one bitten by the injury bug this season. Josh Anderson has been in and out of the lineup all season long. He's another forward that's in the on-again, off-again rotation as far as injuries are concerned. He is a guy who perhaps, who knows what happens with him this summer, but the recurring injuries and the frequent injuries certainly aren't helping the Canadiens with their veteran presence in the forward core. Josh Anderson, another victim of the injury bug. I think people had hopes at the beginning of the season that Paul Byron would at some point get healthy this season and be able to play, and obviously that hasn't been the case. So like Carey Price, we haven't seen hide nor hair of Paul Byron all season long with that hip injury. Christian Dvorak outdone with a knee injury, another blow to the forward core, to the guys up front with the veteran presence of Christian Dvorak going out of the lineup. And perhaps, probably for some, maybe the biggest disappointment of all was Cole Caufield getting shut down in January to have shoulder surgery when it was pretty clear that the Canadiens were not going to have any sort of playoff success this year. The Habs taking the decision to shut Cole Caufield down early on, let him get that shoulder procedure done so that he could begin his rehab. And wouldn't you know, he is starting to, I think, skate again. So it looks like his rehabilitation process is moving right along. Certainly his pace prior to leaving for the season was pretty good, you could say. And while everyone is, of course, excited to see what Cole Caufield's going to do next season, before that happens, everyone's got an eye on what's his new contract going to look like. Rounding out the current forward injuries is Rafael Harvey-Pinard, who has come up from Laval in the absence of so many other forwards and has certainly taken his grip on a possible roster position for next year. The latest to be bitten by the injury bug, but he has started skating with the team again. I believe we should see Harvey-Pinard back in a Habs lineup before these last 4 games of the season are done. Shifting to the back end, Arber Xhekaj, another one right after Cole Caufield. About a month later, Arber Xhekaj going out with a shoulder injury as well. In fact, he had his operation done by the same guy that Cole Caufield did in Colorado. And so he got shut down for the season after he injured his shoulder. Arber Xhekaj bringing that spark and that punch, no pun intended, on the back end. Very exciting rookie season for him. And I think people will be very excited to see not only how he does in his second season, but how this whole decor, this young decor, is going to shake out, because there's a lot of talent and there's only a limited amount of spots on that blue line. David Savard, just recently in this past week, being announced that he is done for the season with a knee injury. So you won't have that David Savard veteran presence for these last 4 games. And at the opposite end of that spectrum, we've not seen Kaiden Guhle play for the past number of games as well. His ankle injury is going to leave him out for the rest of the season as well. A disappointing way for Kaiden Guhle to end the season. He certainly was a firestorm for the rookies on the defense to start the season, and I think there's good things ahead for Kaiden Guhle. Just got to get him healthy again. Jordan Harris being out with a lower body injury as well this week was the reason Corey Schueneman was recalled from the Laval Rocket, and still waiting to see whether or not Jordan Harris will be well enough to play in these last 4 games. For now, Schueneman is still with Montreal instead of going back down to Laval, but just another one who is on the list of injuries. And rounding that out is the goaltending position. Jake Allen suddenly coming up with not being able to practice or play. He is also considered day-to-day, and that came after Cayden Primeau was recalled earlier this week. Cayden Primeau having, let's be honest, not a good outing for Montreal against Detroit on Tuesday night, as the Red Wings blanked the Canadiens 5-0. If Jake Allen is injured, that means Cayden Primeau stays up with Montreal. Laval is the only team left in the organization fighting for a playoff position. They are in the last playoff position eligible in the North Division, but clinging onto it by 1 little baby point. And they play against the team who is chasing them 1 point behind them, the Cleveland Monsters, on Friday night at Place Bell. If Cayden Primeau cannot come back down because Jake Allen is still injured, that will likely mean Kevin Poulin is in net, and he will be backed up by a young man who just joined the Laval Rocket, who has not ever played an AHL game, and that would be Canadiens goaltending prospect, recently signed to his ELC out of the NCAA, Jakub Dobis. All eyes will now be on whether or not Cayden Primeau comes back down to Laval, and if he doesn't, it is likely that Jean-François Houle is going to be perhaps forced to give Jakub Dobis his first start sometime in the next week in his pro career. So something to keep an eye on, and we're going to talk about that more in a future episode. 14 players currently on the injury list for the Montreal Canadiens. You could practically ice an entire separate team with the number of guys who are on the injury list for the Montreal Canadiens. A lot of people are asking questions about this, how this could happen 2 years in a row, and the medical team for the Montreal Canadiens is under a bit of the microscope right now. Are guys being sent back to play too soon? Are they not rehabbing properly? What is the cause for all of this, or is it sheer bad luck? It's questions that will need to be answered, but it's been another disappointing season as far as injuries are concerned for the Montreal Canadiens, which has, of course, also affected the Laval Rocket and their abilities this season as well. Hey, if you enjoy watching our videos each and every week, they come out every Thursday here at Habs Hockey Report. And if you haven't done so already, then may I ask that you tap that subscribe button down below, hit the like button, smash that notification bell, and be sure to share this video on your favorite social media platforms. We enjoy bringing these shows to you each and every week. And don't worry, just because the Habs regular season is winding down doesn't mean that Habs Hockey Report is going away anytime soon. You know, speaking of Cayden Primeau and that not so pretty start that he had against Detroit on Tuesday night, last week on the show, we also talked about Cayden Primeau starting in Philadelphia last week, as well as the decision for Sean Farrell to make his NHL debut last week. And there seemed to be some feathers ruffled, perhaps, within the Montreal Canadiens organization about it. You can hear my take on it right here in this video. Check that out, and I'll see you again next week.